Welcome back to Secrets Exposed. It's always a pleasure to have you with us. You're the reason these stories worth sharing. Tell us where you're watching from, city or country. We're amazed by how far these tales reach. Subscribe our channel and press bell icon to get daily new and amazing stories for you. Alright, let's begin. The house was quiet, wrapped in the kind of silence that comes only late at night, when even the neighbors' televisions had gone dark. Daniel Reed sat hunched on the couch, his laptop glowing in the dimness, half distracted by spreadsheets he didn't really want to finish. His mug of coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but he hadn't moved to replace it. From the kitchen came a soft, steady hum. At first he thought it was the fridge motor, that low vibrating tone it sometimes made. But as the seconds passed, he recognized a melody. It was wordless, a casual tune Clara always hummed when she made tea before bed. Daniel smiled faintly, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. She'd been distant lately, but this sound, familiar, domestic, was grounding. The phone on the cushion beside him buzzed. The caller ID, Sophia, his younger sister. She never called this late unless something was wrong. He answered quickly. Soph? Everything okay? Through the line came a rush of noise, wind, echoing announcements, the faint horn of ship. Her voice was tight, urgent. Danny, listen to me. Is Claire with you right now? Daniel blinked. Of course she is. Why? There was a pause on the other end, the kind where you could almost hear someone choosing their words. Where exactly is she? Daniel frowned, glancing toward the kitchen doorway. Steam curled out in a thin white line, catching the faint glow of the stovetop light. That humming, soft and steady, carried through the hall. She's in the kitchen, making tea. Why are you asking? Sophia exhaled sharply, her voice dropping. No, Danny, no, she isn't. What are you talking about? I'm standing at the boarding gate right now. I just checked her boarding pass. I'm staring at her photo, her ID. Danny, she's here. She's on my ship. She just walked on board. Destination Nassau. The room tilted. Daniel pressed the phone tighter to his ear, as if he could force her words to make sense. He turned again toward the kitchen. The humming hadn't stopped. A kettle hissed, building to a whistle. He could almost see Clara's silhouette moving behind the frosted glass panel in the door. That's impossible, he whispered. She's right here. Danny, I wouldn't joke about this, Sophia said, her voice clipped with urgency. I'm looking at her right now. She's with someone, a man. They're checking in together. The whistle cut through his skull like a blade. His mouth went dry. His hand tightened on the phone until his knuckles whitened. Danny, Sophia's voice cracked through again. Do you hear me? She's not with you. She's here. So, who is in your kitchen? The words lodged in his chest like ice. His gaze stayed fixed on the door at the end of the hall. The shadow behind it shifted slightly, a figure moving in rhythm with the humming. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. The kettle shrieked louder, then cut off suddenly, as if someone had lifted it from a stove. Silence swelled, thick and unnatural. Then, from just beyond the doorway, the humming resumed, lower now, almost deliberate. Each note crawled across his skin. Daniel's breath quickened. His mind darted in circles, trying to reconcile the impossible. Clara's familiar hum here, Sophia's certainty there. He forced his voice steady, but it trembled at the edges. Sophia, if she's with you, then who's here with me? Daniel's pulse hammered in his ears as he rose slowly from the couch. Every creak of the wooden floor beneath his socks sounded too loud, too exposed. The hall stretched long and narrow, shadows pooling in its corners. At the far end, the frosted glass panel of the kitchen door glowed faintly with a weak yellow light from inside. The humming continued, soft but insistent, like it was meant for him to hear. The tune had shifted slightly, almost off-key now, too steady, too deliberate. Clara always hummed absent-mindedly, her notes drifting. This sounded practiced, mechanical. Sophia, Daniel whispered into the phone. You're absolutely sure? You're sure it's her? On the other end, shipboard sound swelled. Announcements calling passengers, luggage wheels rattling on metal gangways. Sophia's voice came tight, urgent. I'm holding her ID, Danny. I scanned her boarding pass myself. It's Clara, and she isn't alone. She's with a tall man, Dark suit, red tie. They're laughing, like this is some holiday. I swear to you it's her. Daniel stopped halfway down the hall, his chest tightening. The words hit harder than he expected. Clara hadn't laughed with him like that in months. Not in the same unguarded way. The shadow behind the kitchen glass shifted again. Something moved across the room, a shoulder, an arm. The kettle's whistle had already stopped, but now came a click, sharp and metallic, as if the switch had been flicked back on. A soft hiss of steam followed, though Daniel hadn't heard anyone touch it. His throat went dry. He whispered, "Sophia, stay on the line." "Danny, don't go in there," she warned. "If she's here with me, then whoever's in there, it isn't her." Daniel swallowed hard. His hand hovered near the doorknob. The brass was cool, almost clammy against his fingertips. He leaned closer. From inside, the humming cut off. The silence that followed pressed against him, suffocating. Then came movement, slow, deliberate footsteps across the kitchen tiles. Each one landed with a faint scrape, heel then toe, measured and calm. Whoever it was, they weren't surprised. They were waiting. Daniel's knuckles whitened around the phone. "Clara?" His voice cracked. No answer. He forced the door open an inch. The hinges moaned. Through the gap, he saw steam curling from the kettle's spout, the faint glow of the stovetop light, and the outline of a teacup resting on the counter. His eyes flicked to the far corner, where a shadow stretched unnaturally long across the floor, though no figure stood in direct sight. His breath caught when the teacup shifted. It rotated slightly, as if nudged, but no hand touched it. His heart slammed in his chest. A whisper, soft and breathy, brushed the back of his neck. "Don't turn around." He spun instantly, heart leaping into his throat. But the hallway behind him was empty, silent except for the faint hiss of steam. His phone nearly slipped from his grasp. "Sophia." His voice was hoarse. "What happened?" she demanded. "There's someone here," he whispered, eyes darting back to the door. "But it doesn't make sense. I just heard them. Behind me." "Danny, listen to me," Sophia pressed. "Stay calm. Don't confront them alone. If Clara's here with me, then someone else is in your house. Maybe she's not who you think." The kitchen door creaked wider on its own, as though nudged by a hand he couldn't see. The humming started again, low and slow, rising from deep inside the room. Daniel's body locked in place. Every instinct screamed at him to run. But another part of him, stubborn, aching, needed the truth. Needed to know why his wife was on a ship with another man while her song carried through his house. He tightened his grip on the phone. "I'm going in," he whispered. And with that, he pushed the kitchen door open. The kitchen door swung wider, its hinges groaning in protest. Daniel's breath hitched as the warm air inside wrapped around him, heavy with steam and the faint, sugary scent of chamomile tea. For a moment, all he could hear was the soft hiss of the kettle and the ticking of the old wall clock above the sink. Then he saw her. A woman stood near the counter, her back half-turned, wearing Clara's pale blue robe. Her damp hair clung to her neck as if she had just stepped out of the shower. In her hands, she cradled the teacup that only seconds earlier had seemed to move on its own. She turned slowly, and when her face met his, she smiled faintly, almost naturally. "You scared me," she said, her voice calm but pitched a little too perfectly. She set the teacup down gently on the counter. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Daniel's pulse thundered. For a moment, relief tangled with dread. She looked like Clara, same height, same soft jawline, the same tired eyes he'd memorized over years of marriage. But something in her expression didn't fit. Clara usually lifted her left brow, first when she was caught off guard. This woman raised her right. "I thought you were—" His voice caught. He swallowed hard. "Clara, where's your phone?" Her eyes flicked sideways just for a second. A tiny hesitation. Then she smiled again, softer this time, her lips curling but not quite reaching her eyes. "Charging," she murmured, nodding toward the counter. But the counter was bare. No phone, no charger, nothing but the teacup and sugar jar. Daniel's gaze sharpened. He forced his breathing steady, but his chest was on fire. His sister's words still echoed in his head. "She's on the ship. With a man." He glanced down. A glimmer of nylon thread caught the stovetop light. His eyes followed it across the counter, thin, almost invisible, looped around the handle of the teacup. His breath stuttered. That was how it had moved. Not magic. A trick. His stomach turned cold. He lifted his phone, still on the call. "Sophia," he whispered, keeping his eyes on the woman. "She's standing right in front of me. But something's wrong." On the line, Sophia's voice was sharp, urgent. "Danny, I just sent you more photos. Look at them." His phone buzzed. He slid his thumb across the screen. The image filled his vision. Clara, his wife, beaming as a tall man in a red tie kissed her hand. The background was the gangway, the ship's logo glowing behind them. Another photo, her laughing, leaning into the man's shoulder. Daniel's stomach dropped. The phone nearly slipped from his grasp. He looked up again at the woman in the robe. His voice was rough, low. "You're not her." The woman froze, her faint smile faltering. Her eyes darted to the door, then back to him. Her hands twitched at her sides, like she was ready to run. "Daniel," she said quickly, her tone shifting. "Please, just calm down." Clara didn't want to fight. "Who are you?" Daniel cut her off, his tone sharp now. "What are you doing in my house?" The woman's lips parted, but no words came. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Daniel with his heart tearing itself apart inside his chest. The woman with her eyes wide and glassy, her shoulders tense as though she carried a secret that was too heavy to hold. Finally, her voice cracked, almost a whisper. "She asked me to stay." Daniel blinked. "What?" "She didn't want you to worry," the woman said, her hands trembling. "She told me to be here, to keep the lights on, to make it seem like she never left. Just until she comes back." Daniel's knees went weak. The robe, the humming, the stage tea, it all fell into place like shards of glass slicing together. His wife hadn't just cheated. She planned this. She'd hired someone to stand in her place inside his home. And right now, Daniel realized he wasn't looking at Clara at all. He was staring at her shadow. Daniel gripped the back of a chair to steady himself. His throat felt raw, his chest tight, as though all the air in the kitchen had been sucked away. The woman in the robe, Clara's robe, stood trembling, her hands half raised, caught between defending herself and surrendering. "You're not her," Daniel repeated, voice lower this time, but harder. "So who are you?" The woman wet her lips, glancing at the door as though calculating the distance, the time it would take to run. Daniel noticed her subtle shift in stance, feet angling toward escape, knees bent. "If you move," he warned, his voice rough, "I'll call the police right now." "So talk. Who sent you?" She froze. Her breathing quickened, shallow bursts. Then, slowly, she pulled the robe tighter across her chest, as if that thin fabric could shield her from the weight of his eyes. "She asked me to stay," the woman said again, her voice barely audible. "Who?" Daniel snapped, though the answer was obvious. "Clara." Daniel felt the name hit him like a blow. He lowered himself into the chair, his legs unsteady. The cold wooden surface bit into his palms as he pressed them flat on the table. "Why?" he asked, the single word shaking loose from his chest. "Why would she?" His voice broke. He tried again. "Why would she do this?" The woman shifted uncomfortably. She said she didn't want to fight. She didn't want you asking questions. Daniel laughed once, bitter and humorless. "So she sent you instead? To hum in the kitchen? To boil the kettle? To wear her robe?" The woman's eyes dropped. "Yes." He leaned forward, his voice trembling between fury and disbelief. "What are you to her? A friend? A stranger? What kind of person agrees to something like this?" The woman's jaw tightened. "My name's Mara," she said finally. I'm her cousin." Daniel blinked. "Her cousin?" Mara nodded, shame flickering across her face. "We grew up together. She called me last week. Said she needed a favor. She told me you'd get angry if you found out where she was going. She said it was just for a few days. That all I had to do was keep the routine going. Lights on, tea at night, a shadow moving behind the glass. Enough so you wouldn't suspect anything." Daniel's stomach twisted. His wife hadn't just lied. She'd built an entire performance, roping in family to make it work. "And you agreed to this?" His voice rose, but he caught himself, gripping the edge of the table until his knuckles whitened. You broke into my house, pretended to be her, all because she told you I'd get angry. Mara flinched at the sharpness in his tone. She paid me, she admitted, her voice cracking. I didn't want to, but she said she'd cover my rent for 3 months if I helped. I needed the money. I thought it was harmless. Just role play. Just pretending. Daniel's eyes burned. He shook his head slowly, disbelief grinding into despair. Pretending, he echoed. While she's off with, he stopped himself, the image from Sophia's photo flashing in his mind. Clara laughing, her hand kissed by the man in the red tie. He swallowed hard, lowering his voice. She's not alone. She's with someone. Did she tell you that part? Mara's lips pressed into a thin line. She looked away, eyes darting toward the floor. Her silence was answer enough. Daniel felt a cold weight sink into his stomach. The kettle ticked as it cooled, the sound unnaturally loud in the silence. Finally, Mara whispered, I didn't know who. I swear. She just said she was leaving for a while. She told me to make sure you didn't notice. That's all. Daniel sat back, his hands trembling in his lap. He stared at her, this stand-in wearing his wife's robe, standing in his kitchen, humming his wife's tune. And for the first time that night, he understood. Clara hadn't simply slipped away on a whim. She had engineered this, planned it down to the smallest detail. And the woman in front of him was proof. Mara looked up at him, her eyes glossy. She didn't want you to know the truth. Daniel's voice broke into a whisper. And what truth is that? Mara hesitated, biting her lip, torn between silence and confession. Then she whispered, almost inaudible, She isn't coming back. The words hit Daniel like a blunt force to the chest. She isn't coming back. For a moment, he sat frozen, every muscle in his body locked, his mind refusing to register the meaning. His wife's cousin stood in his kitchen wearing Clara's robe, her eyes wet, her hands trembling, her voice barely a whisper, and yet, her words carried more weight than a scream. Daniel's throat tightened. What do you mean? His voice cracked, thin and desperate. What do you mean she isn't coming back? Mara looked down, twisting the robe's belt between her fingers. That's what she told me. She didn't give me a timeline. She just said she was leaving everything behind. You, this house, her job, all of it. Daniel shook his head violently. No, that's not Clara. She wouldn't. His chest heaved. He tried to steady his breathing, but it came in jagged bursts. She wouldn't just walk away. We've been married 7 years. We built a life together. You don't just erase that overnight. Mara's face softened, but she said nothing. Her silence filled the room like lead. Daniel's phone buzzed in his hand. A new message from Sophia lit up the screen. Danny, she's boarding with him. They look close. I'm so sorry. Attached was another photo. Clara's face pressed into the shoulder of the man in the red tie. Her eyes closed, smiling in a way Daniel hadn't seen in months. His vision blurred. He dropped the phone onto the table with a hollow clatter, pressing both palms against his temples. The edges of the kitchen swam. She's on a ship, he muttered, almost to himself. With him, laughing, smiling. While you're standing here in my kitchen telling me she's never coming back. Mara took a small step toward him. Daniel, I didn't want to do this. She begged me. She said if you found out, it would destroy you. She thought this way would be easier. Easier, he barked a humorless laugh, looking up at her with eyes glassy from unshed tears. Do you have any idea what it feels like to be in your own house, hearing your wife hum in the kitchen, only to find out it's a stranger in her clothes? His voice cracked. Do you have any idea how sick that is? Mara flinched, her shoulders curling inward. I know, she whispered. I know, but she didn't leave you without reason. That made him pause. His breath slowed, suspicion cutting through the fog of heartbreak. He straightened, his voice low. What reason? Mara's lips pressed together. She shook her head quickly. I promised her I wouldn't say. Daniel slammed his hand down on the table, the sound making Mara jump. No more games. His voice thundered, raw with betrayal and pain. You're my house, wearing my wife's robe, humming her song. You don't get to keep secrets from me. What reason? Mara's eyes darted toward the burner phone tucked half hidden in the robe pocket. She hesitated, then clutched it tighter. It's not just about the affair, she said finally, her voice trembling. It's bigger than that. But if I tell you, Clara will never forgive me. Daniel stared at her, his chest heaving, his mind spinning. Cheating was already betrayal enough. But the way Mara's voice wavered, the way she clutched that phone like it contained a bomb, it all screamed of something larger, darker, deliberate. For the first time since this nightmare began, Daniel's heartbreak gave way to something else. A cold, sharp edge of fear. He leaned forward, his voice dropping into a whisper. Mara, if Clara's not coming back, then I don't care if she forgives you. Tell me what she's hiding. Mara's hand trembled around the phone. Her eyes glistened as she looked up at him, torn between loyalty and guilt. Finally, she whispered. She said she couldn't risk you finding out. Not about him, not about the money. For a moment, Daniel thought he had misheard. His pulse roared so loud in his ears that Mara's words seemed to blur. He forced himself to breathe, forced the kitchen back into focus. The money, he repeated, his voice dangerously low. What money? Mara's eyes flicked toward the burner phone peeking from her robe pocket. Her fingers twitched, curling protectively around it. Daniel saw the gesture. His jaw tightened. What's on that phone? She shook her head quickly, clutching it closer. I can't. Answer me. His voice cracked like a whip. The kettle on the counter rattled as his fist slammed down beside it. Steam puffed weakly from the spout, the only other sound in the suffocating silence. Mara flinched, her eyes wide. If I tell you, Clara will know it came from me. She said you couldn't find out. Not about her. Not about Andrew. Not about the transfers. The name slipped out before she could stop herself. Her hand flew to her mouth. Daniel's stomach dropped. Andrew. The name tasted bitter. Andrew Parr. Mara's silence was confirmation enough. Daniel staggered back, the rune spinning. Andrew wasn't just his boss. He was someone Daniel had trusted, leaned on at work. 2 weeks ago, Andrew had casually asked Daniel to share backup access codes, just in case IT needed them. Daniel had thought nothing of it, too distracted by Clara's growing distance. Now the pieces twisted into a shape that made his skin crawl. He pressed a hand to his forehead, trying to ground himself. My boss, he muttered. She's with my boss. Mara's voice was small. I didn't know his name. I just knew she called him her partner. Daniel's laugh was hollow bitter. Partner, he repeated. In what? In bed? Or in something else? Mara hesitated, then slowly pulled the burner phone from her pocket. She held it out like it might burn her fingers. I shouldn't, but you deserve to know. Daniel snatched it from her hand. The cheap plastic was warm, the screen smudged with makeup. His thumb hovered over the lock. It wasn't password protected. The messages were brief, coded, but clear. He'll believe it if the routine stays the same. Hum at night, kettle on smart plug. He noticed his habits. Keep him calm until Friday. By then the wire will be through. Daniel's breath caught. He scrolled further. A contact saved only as M had sent step-by-step instructions. Lights on by 8. Make tea by 10. If he enters the kitchen, say the line. Daniel froze. The line. Don't turn around. His blood ran cold. She scripted it. He whispered. Mara's eyes filled with tears. I didn't want to do it, but she said it was harmless. Just a distraction until everything was finished. Daniel's grip tightened on the phone until the plastic creaked. His vision tunneled on the words, the neat choreography of deception. Clara hadn't just cheated. She had orchestrated his blindness, engineered every movement to keep him docile. He looked up at Mara, his voice raw. What wire? Mara shook her head. I don't know. She just said by Friday it would all be over. That you'd never be able to stop it. Daniel's mind reeled. Wires. Transfers. Andrew's request for his backup codes. Clara's sudden secrecy with her phone. It wasn't just about betrayal in marriage. It was betrayal in every corner of his life. He dropped into the chair, clutching the burner like a lifeline. His hands trembled, but his voice sharpened with a clarity he hadn't felt all night. She's not just leaving me, he said. She's setting me up. Mara's silence confirmed it. For the first time since this nightmare began, Daniel's grief hardened into resolve. He wasn't just a man abandoned by his wife. He was the target of a plan, and if he didn't act now, Everything he had built could vanish by morning. Daniel's hands shook as he set the burner phone on the table. The messages stared back at him, cold and methodical. Instructions to keep him distracted, to keep him calm, to keep him blind. Clara's words, his wife's words, reduced to bullet points of manipulation. Mara stood by the counter, ringing the robe belt in her hands. Her silence pressed against the walls. Finally, Daniel pushed himself to his feet, his chair scraping harshly across the floor. "If there's a wire," he muttered, more to himself than to her, "then there's a trail." He marched into his study, the glow of his laptop waiting on the desk. Mara hesitated in the doorway before following, her steps hesitant. Daniel dropped into the chair, his fingers flying across the keyboard, logging into his banking portal. His throat tightened as the screen loaded. There it was. A pending transaction scheduled for Friday, flagged as vendor payment. The amount made his stomach drop. Hundreds of thousands, routed to a company name he didn't recognize. He scrolled further. Smaller test transfers had already gone through. Clean. Unnoticed. All others login. Daniel's voice cracked. "She's bleeding me dry." Mara shifted uncomfortably behind him. "I didn't know about this part. I swear. She told me it was just personal. That she was leaving you, not what?" Daniel snapped, spinning in his chair to face her. His eyes were bloodshot, his jaw clenched. "Not destroying everything I've worked for? Not putting me in prison for fraud?" Mara flinched, tears brimming in her eyes. "She didn't say it like that. She just said by the time you found out, it would be too late to stop. That you'd take the blame." The words crushed him. Daniel turned back to the screen, his vision blurring. He remembered Andrew leaning casually in his office doorway 2 weeks ago, smiling as he asked for Daniel's backup codes, just in case IT needed access. At the time, Daniel hadn't thought twice. He had trusted him, trusted both of them, and now that trust had become a noose. He pulled up his work email. His stomach lurched at what he found. Password reset notifications he hadn't requested, automated logs of access from unfamiliar IP addresses. Clara's email was copied on several. She had been monitoring him, piggybacking off his credentials. His chest tightened. "God," he whispered, "they've been planning this for months." Mara's voice shook. "Daniel, what are you going to do?" He stared at the screen, his reflection pale in the glow. His heart was racing, but beneath the fear, something sharper began to take root. Determination. "I'm going to stop them," he said, his voice hard. "I don't care what it takes. I'm not going to sit here while they turn me into the villain." Mara shook her head quickly. "You don't understand." Clara said, "If you fought back, it would only make you look worse. That was the point of me being here. She told me to record you if you lost control, to show proof that you were dangerous." Daniel froze. His breath hitched. Slowly, he turned in his chair. "What did you just say?" Mara's hands trembled as she lifted a small makeup kit from her tote bag. Inside, nestled between brushes and concealer palettes, was a tiny recording device. She set it on the desk, her eyes full of shame. "She told me to use it if you yelled, if you touched me." She wanted evidence. She wanted to show people that you weren't stable. Daniel stared at the device, horror blooming in his chest. His wife hadn't just left him. She hadn't just stolen his money. She was building a story where he was the monster. He gripped the edge of the desk, so tightly the wood dug into his palms. "She wanted to erase me," he whispered. Mara's tears spilled over. "I didn't know it was this bad, Daniel. I swear I didn't know." Daniel's chest heaved. For a moment, the weight of it all nearly crushed him. His wife's betrayal, his boss's treachery, the trap carefully set around him. But then his eyes hardened. He closed the makeup kit with a snap, shoving the recorder aside. "Then we flipped the story," he said. Mara blinked. "What?" Daniel leaned forward, his eyes locked on the screen, his voice sharp and deliberate. "If Clara wants evidence, then I'll give her evidence. Not of me, but of them. Every message, every transfer, every instruction on this phone." He tapped the burner with 2 fingers. "She thought I wouldn't notice. She thought I'd break. But I'm not breaking, Mara. I'm fighting." For the first time that night, his grief gave way to resolve. He wasn't just a betrayed husband anymore. He was a man with proof and a reason to use it. Daniel's fingers hovered over the keyboard, his breath shallow. The wire sat there on the screen like a ticking bomb, scheduled, unstoppable unless he acted now. He grabbed his phone and dialed the emergency line for his bank. A robotic voice routed him through menus until finally a human answered. "Mr. Reed, how can I help you tonight?" Daniel's voice shook, but he forced clarity into each word. "There's a fraudulent transaction scheduled under my account. I need it stopped immediately." The representative clicked through his file. "I see a wire queued to Meridian Global Suppliers for Friday. Is that the one?" Daniel's chest tightened. "Yes. Cancel it. Now." "I'm afraid," the rep replied carefully, "it already has dual authorization. We'll need both parties to confirm a stop." Daniel froze. "Both parties?" "Yes, sir. A co-authorized user approved this yesterday." The room tilted. His grip on the phone tightened until his knuckles whitened. "There is no co-authorized user. This is my account." The rep hesitated. "Our records show Clara Reed as a secondary. She supplied matching identification and credentials." The system logged her approval. Daniel's stomach dropped. He lowered the phone, the voice still droning faintly in his ear. Clara had thought of everything. Not only had she accessed his account, she had legally positioned herself as a co-owner. Any move he made would look like he was fighting her for money that was theirs. Mara watched him from the doorway, her eyes wide. What did they say? He let the phone slip from his ear, his voice hollow. "She's listed as a co-owner. The bank won't stop the wire without her consent." Mara's hands flew to her mouth. "Oh God." Daniel's jaw tightened. He ended the call, slamming the phone down on the desk. For a moment, silence filled the room, broken only by the faint hum of his laptop. Then he pushed back from the desk, standing so abruptly the chair nearly toppled. "They're framing me, Mara," he said, his voice rising. "The money moves under my name. She disappears with him. And when the audit comes, all fingers point to me. And she has the evidence to show I'm dangerous, unstable." He gestured sharply at the recorder she'd revealed earlier. "It's perfect. Too perfect." Mara's voice trembled. "I didn't know it would go this far. She told me you were controlling, that she needed a way out, that this was just about protecting herself." Daniel turned on her, fury flashing in his eyes. Protecting herself? By setting me up for prison? By emptying our accounts? His voice cracked with raw betrayal. Did she protect herself when she climbed into bed with my boss? Mara's tears spilled over. "I didn't know about Andrew. I swear." Daniel's chest heaved. He pinched the bridge of his nose, forcing his temper back down. Losing control now would only prove Clara right. He sat heavily on the edge of the desk, staring at the floor. Mara hesitated, then stepped forward, her voice softer. "She called me 2 weeks ago. Said she had a plan. That she needed someone she trusted to play her shadow. She promised it was temporary. That once she was gone, I'd never have to worry about it again. I thought it was just about leaving you. I didn't know she'd drag you into this." Daniel lifted his eyes. For the first time, he saw more than guilt in hers. He saw fear. Not of him, but of Clara. "She manipulated you too," he said quietly. Mara nodded, a tear sliding down her cheek. "She knows how to get what she wants. She always has." Daniel leaned back, exhaling slowly. "Then we use that against her." Mara frowned. "Ow!" He picked up the burner phone, scrolling through the messages again. Each one was evidence, clear, undeniable proof of her deception. He tapped the screen, his jaw set. "We don't stop the wire. Not yet. If I cancel it, she'll know I'm onto her. She'll adjust. But if I let her think I'm still blind, she'll slip. And when she does, I'll be ready." Mara's brows knit together. "That's dangerous." Daniel looked at her, his eyes burning with a mix of fury and resolve. "So is doing nothing. She wanted me broken. She wanted me erased. Now she's going to learn what happens when I fight back." The kettle clicked in the kitchen, as if mocking the silence that followed. Mara wrapped her arms around herself, shivering though the room was warm. For the first time since this nightmare began, Daniel wasn't just reacting. He was planning. And that shift, the decision to go on the offensive, changed everything. Daniel sat hunched over his laptop, the burner phone glowing beside him like a cursed relic. Every message he scrolled through was another knife in his chest, proof of Clara's careful planning, proof of Andrew's hand guiding it all. The house was silent except for the faint ticking of the wall clock and the hum of his computer fan. Then his phone buzzed in his pocket. He yanked it out. A message from Sophia. Danny, they're on deck 8 now. Together. He has his arm around her. She looks happy, like nothing's wrong. Attached was another blurry photo. Clara's head resting on Andrew's shoulder as they leaned against the ship's railing. Wind in her hair. Her smile radiant. Daniel's throat closed. His wife, the woman he had built his life with, was halfway to Nassau with another man, plotting his ruin while looking like she'd never been more alive. He slammed the laptop shut, his hands trembling. Mara flinched at the sound from her spot near the doorway. She had been quiet for the last half hour, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. What happened? Daniel held up the phone. She's not hiding anymore. She's parading around with him, laughing while she burns my life to the ground. Mara looked down, shame twisting across her face. I'm sorry, she whispered. Sorry doesn't fix this, Daniel shot back, his voice cracking. He pinched the bridge of his nose, fighting for control. Losing his temper was exactly what Clara wanted. He forced himself to inhale, to focus. No, sorry isn't enough. I need evidence. Enough to bury both of them. Mara hesitated, then reached in her tote bag again. Her hand shook as she pulled out a small bundle of folded papers. I wasn't supposed to show you these. Clara gave them to me in case you asked too many questions. Daniel snatched them, unfolding the sheets. His stomach turned as his eyes scanned the contents. Copies of his own emails, doctored. Vendor contracts he'd never signed. Invoices with his digital signature pasted sloppily at the bottom. It was all there. The frame was airtight. They were going to plant these, Mara said softly. If anyone started digging, they'd say you signed off on everything. Clara told me if you figure it out, I should stall you. Keep you here until the transfer was complete. Daniel's blood went cold. She turned you into my warden. Mara's voice cracked. I didn't know it was this deep. I thought she just wanted out of the marriage. I thought she was scared of you. Daniel's head snapped up, his eyes blazing. Scared of me? Mara's face flushed red. That's what she told me. She said you were controlling. That you'd explode if you found out she was leaving. That I'd be protecting her by keeping you calm. Daniel laughed bitterly, the sound raw and hollow. Protecting her? By sitting in my kitchen wearing her robe? By moving teacups with string and whispering in the dark? He shook his head violently. She didn't want protection. She wanted cover. And you gave it to her. Mara's eyes filled with tears. I see that now. The phone buzzed again. Another message from Sophia. Danny, listen carefully. I overheard them. They're talking about a final push tonight. Andrew said the system will lock by midnight. And once the wire clears Friday, it can't be reversed. Clara said you'll never know until it's too late. Daniel's vision swam. Midnight. That gave him less than 3 hours. He turned back to Mara, his voice hard. If you want to make this right, then you help me stop them. Every detail. Every instruction Clara gave you. You tell me everything. Mara hesitated, twisting the robe belt again until her knuckles whitened. Then she nodded, her voice trembling. Okay. She gave me a script. Word for word. It's still on the burner. I'll show you. Daniel leaned forward, his eyes locked on hers. Then let's end this before they do. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, each second a reminder that time was running out. Clara wasn't just gone. She was accelerating her plan. And if Daniel didn't outpace her, by morning, his entire life would belong to her and Andrew. The wall clocks ticking grew louder, each second digging into Daniel's nerves like a knife. Midnight was closing in. Mara slid the burner phone across the desk, her hands trembling. The script's all here. Every move I was supposed to make. Daniel picked it up, scrolling through the messages. The instructions were chilling in their precision. 10 p.m. Hum in the kitchen. He listens for it. It calms him. 10:15. Put kettle on smart plug. Turn it off just before whistle. 10:20. Teacup prepped with string. Move slightly when he looks. If confronted, don't let him see your face until ready. Whisper the line. Don't turn around. Daniel's grip on the phone tightened. He could almost hear Clara's voice behind the words, knowing his habits, his insecurities, even the smallest details of his nightly routine. She knew how I'd react, he muttered. She knew every step I'd take. Mara's voice was soft. She studies people. Always has. It's how she gets what she wants. The phone buzzed suddenly. Daniel nearly dropped it. A new message had come in, time-stamped just minutes ago. Status check. Did he see you tonight? Did he believe it? Mara's face drained of color. She thinks I'm still playing along. Daniel's chest tightened. Good. We keep it that way. He typed quickly, mimicking Mara's shaky tone. Yes. He believed it. No problems. Then he set the burner down, his jaw set. Sophia's name flashed on his personal phone again. He answered immediately. Her voice was hushed, tense, the sounds of a ship bustling faintly behind her. Danny, I follow them. They're in a private lounge now. Andrew's on his laptop. Clara keeps checking her phone, like she's waiting for confirmation. I couldn't get too close, but I heard Andrew say the word finalize. It's happening tonight. Daniel closed his eyes, swallowing the panic rising in his chest. How much time do I have? An hour, maybe less. Whatever they're doing, they want it locked before midnight. He nodded, though she couldn't see him. Stay with them. Record what you can. I'll handle the rest from here. When he hung up, his reflection stared back at him from the dark laptop screen. Pale, gaunt, eyes burning with a mix of fear and fury. Mara shifted uneasily. Daniel, what are you going to do? He opened his laptop again, fingers flying. They think I'm cornered. I'll sit here, paralyzed, while they close the trap. But if I can reroute the wire, if I could document every move, they won't just fail. They'll hang themselves with their own rope. Lines of code and login screens filled the glow. Daniel navigated to his company's vendor directory, pulling up the shell account Clara and Andrew had planted. He took screenshots, exported logs, saved every detail to an encrypted drive. His breathing steadied as the evidence piled up. Solid, undeniable proof. Behind him, Mara whispered, "What if they realize you're onto them?" Daniel didn't look up. Then they'll panic. And people who panic make mistakes. The burner buzzed again. Another message. Friday he'll never know. You'll be free by then. A small heart emoji trailed the sentence. Daniel stared at it, ball rising in his throat. His wife, speaking to his cousin, plotting his destruction like it was a game. He set the phone down carefully. No, he whispered. I'm the one who's going to be free. The clock ticked closer to 11:30. His plan was forming, but so was the danger. Clara and Andrew thought they had hours left. Daniel had minutes. For the first time that night, Daniel felt the shift. He was no longer the man trapped in the kitchen, listening to a stranger hum. He was the man pulling the strings now. And when the clock struck midnight, it wouldn't be him caught in the trap. It would be them. The clock on the wall showed 11:42. 18 minutes until midnight. 18 minutes until Clara and Andrew locked him out of his own life. Daniel sat rigid at his desk, his laptop screen glowing with lines of transactions. He had managed to trace the vendor account to a shell company registered offshore. Every invoice tied back to his credentials. Every approval carried his name. But the timestamps told another story. Entries logged at hours when he had been home, asleep beside Clara. Proof. Real proof. He hit record on his screen capture software, narrating each step with a steady voice. Transaction ID 4527. Executed at 2:13 a.m. Login credential. Daniel Reed. Physical login impossible. I was in residence with witness Sophia Reed. He swallowed hard, forcing himself to sound calm, not desperate. Evidence mattered more than emotion. Behind him, Mara hovered anxiously. She kept glancing at the burner phone on the table, flinching each time it buzzed. Clara was checking it more often now. Still calm? Still routine. Final confirmation soon. Keep him quiet. Daniel ignored the texts. He was beyond the role of their puppet. His personal phone buzzed again. Sophia. He answered instantly. Her whisper carried through the line, muffled under the noise of clinking glasses and muted jazz. Danny, I'm in the lounge. They're here. Andrew's laptop is open. I can't see the screen, but Clara keeps leaning in. She's nervous, biting her lip. He told her, once this sinks, he's done. Daniel's chest constricted. Sinks how? I don't know, Sophia whispered. But Andrew just opened a bottle of champagne. They're celebrating like it's already over. Daniel turned back to his laptop, sweat beading on his forehead. Midnight wasn't a deadline. It was a finish line for them. He typed furiously, opening the bank portal again. The wire sat there, scheduled, unmovable. But he noticed something he hadn't before, a hidden field showing the approval device ID. Not his. Clara's phone. Daniel's pulse raced. If he could prove Clara was the one authorizing every move, not him, the frame would crumble. He started to trace, his fingers flying. Mara stepped closer, her voice trembling. Daniel, what if you can't stop it? He didn't look up. Then I make sure they can't either. The burner buzzed again. This time, Clara's words were sharp, impatient. Why no reply? Did he ask questions? Handle him. Mara swallowed hard. She's getting suspicious. Daniel leaned back, thinking fast. He grabbed the phone and typed, all quiet. He's asleep on the couch. No problems. He hit send, his hand steady. Mara exhaled shakily. That'll buy us time. Daniel's laptop pinged. A new login attempt appeared. Andrew's system accessing the wire remotely. The cursor on Daniel's screen flickered, permissions shifting. They were trying to finalize without him. His heart pounded. Sophia, are they both at the laptop? He whispered into the phone. Yes, she murmured. Clara just leaned over. She typed something. Andrew smiled. Daniel's stomach dropped. Clara wasn't just a passenger in this plan. She was the hand pressing every key. He clicked deeper, tracing the session ID. His screen filled with data. The remote device fingerprint matched Clara's phone exactly. He hit capture, screenshotting everything, saving files to the encrypted drive. Proof. Solid, irrefutable proof. But as the clock ticked to 11:56, his relief curdled into dread. He had evidence, but they still had control of the money. If he couldn't stop the wire before midnight, they would vanish with it, leaving him to fight a legal war that could drag on for years. Mara stepped closer, her voice urgent. Daniel, you can't beat them at their own game. Not tonight. Daniel turned, his eyes blazing. Then I'll change the game. He opened his corporate email, attaching every log, every screenshot, every burner message. His fingers flew as he addressed it. To Compliance Legal Board. CC, Andrew Parr. His heart thudded in his chest. If Andrew saw it in real time, panic would set in. And panic meant mistakes. He hovered over send as the clock ticked to 11:59. On the phone, Sophia whispered, Danny, they're clinking glasses. Andrew's saying, to freedom. Clara's laughing. He's hitting enter. Daniel's finger slammed down on the mouse. Send. The screen blinked. The email shot through the system. And as the clock struck midnight, two battles unfolded at once. One on Daniel's laptop in a quiet suburban study, and another in a velvet-lined cruise lounge where Clara and Andrew believed they had already won. The clock struck midnight, its echo hanging in the air like a final verdict. Daniel sat frozen at his desk, watching the email he'd sent flicker through his outbox. For a heartbeat, silence reigned. Then the burner phone buzzed violently against the table. A message from Clara. What did you do? Another followed seconds later. Answer me now. Don't touch anything. Daniel stared at the words, his chest pounding. Clara wasn't calm anymore. She wasn't calculating. She was panicking. Sophia's voice came through his phone, breathless and low. Danny, it's working. Andrew just grabbed his laptop, swearing. Clara looks terrified. She keeps checking her phone. Your email must have hit. Andrew's pacing. He said, it's over, they know. Security staff are looking this way. What do I do? Stay close, Daniel whispered. Record everything. On his laptop, new notifications appeared. Auto replies from compliance and legal acknowledging receipt of his email. He exhaled shakily. The proof was out there now, beyond his control, beyond Clara's ability to spin. Mara stood behind him, her face pale. Is it over? Daniel shook his head. Not yet. The burner buzzed again. Clara's words came sharp, almost frantic. You'll regret this. You've ruined everything. Do you hear me, Daniel? Everything. Daniel typed back one line and hit send. No, Clara. You ruined yourself. Moments later, Sophia's muffled voice surged through the line. Danny, they're here. Port security just walked in. Andrew's shouting. Clara's begging him to calm down. They're taking the laptop. They're separating them. Her breath caught. Clara's crying. She looks like she just realized it's real. It's really over. Daniel closed his eyes, pressing his palms together. For the first time that night, the crushing weight on his chest loosened. By 12:15, Sophia confirmed what Daniel already knew deep down. Andrew was escorted out in handcuffs. Clara followed, her protests drowned beneath the hum of officers' radios. The champagne glasses they'd raised minutes before sat untouched, bubbles dying in silence. Back in the study, Daniel leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. He felt hollow, exhausted, but also steady. He had survived the trap. Mara sat quietly on the couch, still in Clara's robe, her eyes glassy. "I didn't know she'd do this to you," she whispered. "I thought I was helping family. But she used me, just like she used you." Daniel studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "She turned you into part of the performance. But tonight, you chose differently." He tapped the burner phone. "Without this, I wouldn't have had proof. Whatever her reasons, you helped stop her in the end." Mara's lips trembled. She said nothing, but the relief in her eyes spoke for her. Daniel opened his laptop one final time. He began drafting a note to himself. Cold, factual, unemotional. Call lawyer. File for divorce. Secure accounts. Change every password. Each word felt like a nail sealing a coffin. On his phone, Sophia's last message lit the screen. "Safe now. They won't walk free. You're clear, Danny." He set the phone down gently. The kitchen was silent now. No humming, no stage shadows. Just a faint tick of the cooling kettle. Daniel rose, walked into the kitchen, and pulled Clara's robe off the back of Mara's shoulders. He folded it carefully, set it on the counter, and stepped away. The fabric smelled faintly of her perfume, but underneath, he caught something else, the scent of lies burned away by the night's revelations. For the first time in months, Daniel stood in his own house and felt present. Alone, yes, but no longer blind, no longer trapped in someone else's story. His marriage was gone, his trust shattered, but his name, his life, remained his own. And as the clock ticked past 12:30, Daniel realized the truth. Clara hadn't taken his freedom. By trying to erase him, she had given it back.